famous monument. This is the story of the lost circle of Stonehenge.
Stonehenge has always stood as one of the most enigmatic landmarks in human history, its silent stones hinting at a story that lay beyond reach for centuries. Rising on the Salisbury Plain, its weathered monoliths have long invited speculation about their builders, their purpose, and the techniques that allowed such massive stones to be transported and arranged in perfect alignment thousands of years ago. For generations, it was the greatest riddle of the prehistoric world. Yet now, after years of painstaking research, scientific breakthroughs have peeled back the veil of mystery. The discovery is astonishing, not only because of what it reveals about Stonehenge itself, but because it reshapes our understanding of early civilization, human ingenuity, and the spiritual landscape of ancient Europe. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. What scientists have uncovered is that the stones were not simply random megaliths hauled from nearby fields. Instead, they hold a geological and cultural story that connects regions far beyond Wiltshire. Recent geochemical analysis of the massive sarsens, the towering stones that form the iconic Outer Ring, has revealed they originate from a very specific location, West Woods, located roughly 15 miles away. While that distance may not sound overwhelming, transporting these stones, each weighing around 20 to 30 tons, across uneven forested terrain in the Neolithic period required extraordinary planning, coordination, and engineering skill. The fact that all but two of the sarsens came from this single site suggests that the builders deliberately chose the quarry, creating a level of uniformity and precision that was previously unimaginable. This discovery alone reframes the monument not as a haphazard assembly of stones, but as a carefully designed project with a clear blueprint. The shock lies not only in the logistical revelation, but in the cultural implications. By sourcing such massive stones from one site, the builders demonstrated a communal vision and shared identity that stretched across generations. Stonehenge was not the effort of a single group or fleeting community. It was the product of an enduring society that marshaled its people to achieve something both monumental and symbolic. The act of transporting and raising these stones would have required hundreds, if not thousands, of people working together with ropes, sledges, levers, and raw determination. This scale of cooperation suggests that Neolithic society was far more organized, socially stratified, and spiritually motivated than historians once believed. Beyond the sarsens, scientists also turned their attention to the smaller blue stones that form the inner circle. Earlier findings suggested that these stones had been transported from Wales, nearly 180 miles away, but the precision of modern analysis has revealed that they came from specific outcrops in the Preseli Hills. The implications of this are staggering. It means that Stonehenge was not simply a local project. It was a monument that linked distant communities across the British Isles. To bring stones from Wales to Wiltshire would have required traversing rivers, valleys, and open sea routes. Such an endeavor demonstrates not only technical mastery of transport, but also a sense of shared spiritual purpose that transcended geography. The builders of Stonehenge were not isolated villagers. They were participants in a network of communication and cultural exchange stretching across the island. The shock deepens when one considers why these stones were chosen. The geochemical signatures show that each type of stone was selected for its specific qualities. The sarsens, uniform and imposing, provided strength and grandeur. The blue stones, smaller and exotic, carried symbolic weight, perhaps associated with healing or with ancestral connections to distant lands. Stonehenge, then, was not just an architectural marvel, but a spiritual gathering place, designed with a layered meaning encoded in its very geology. The careful selection of stones from different origins shows a sophistication of thought, an awareness of symbolism, and a reverence for material that speaks to a profound worldview. Equally astonishing is what new archaeological techniques have revealed about the monument's alignments. Using high-resolution ground-penetrating radar and digital modeling, scientists confirmed with even greater certainty that Stonehenge's layout corresponds with the cycles of the sun. The great trilithons frame the midsummer sunrise and midwinter sunset, anchoring the monument to celestial rhythms. This confirms that Stonehenge was not a random stone circle, but a calendar, a place where the turning of the seasons was made visible in stone. For Neolithic people, who lived by agricultural cycles, this was not abstract astronomy. It was survival, a means of aligning human life with cosmic order. To think that 5,000 years ago, people could construct such a lasting and accurate solar observatory is a revelation that reshapes the timeline of human scientific achievement. The evidence also suggests that Stonehenge was part of a larger ceremonial landscape. Recent excavations around the site revealed traces of wooden posts, burial mounds, and avenues connecting the monument to the River Avon. These findings suggest that Stonehenge was not a solitary circle in the wilderness, but the heart of a vast ceremonial complex. People likely traveled from far distances to take part in rituals, processions, and seasonal gatherings. The shocking realization here is that Stonehenge may have been less of a static monument and more of a stage for human drama. Life, death, renewal, and community bound together under the gaze of the sun and stone. What astonishes further is how much this discovery says about human willpower and belief. The stones themselves are mute, yet their placement and sourcing speak of a society driven by something greater than survival. The sheer effort of quarrying, transporting, and erecting such massive blocks suggests that these people were not only engineers, but visionaries. They saw themselves as part of a cosmic order, their monument a bridge between earth and sky, between the living and the dead. For them, Stonehenge was not simply a construction, it was a living symbol, embodying the cycles of time, the memory of ancestors, and the promise of continuity. The implications of the latest scientific revelations extend beyond archaeology. They challenge assumptions about the intellectual and spiritual capacity of early societies. Where once Stonehenge was dismissed as a primitive curiosity, it now emerges as a sophisticated expression of human creativity. It reveals a civilization that could organize labor on a massive scale, coordinate across distant regions, and embed abstract astronomical concepts in enduring architecture. It compels us to recognize that the people of 5,000 years ago were not so different from us. They sought meaning, connection, and permanence, leaving behind a monument that continues to speak across the ages. The discovery also reshapes the way we think about cultural identity. The builders of Stonehenge were not isolated tribes scratching out survival in a harsh world. They were people with shared myths, common goals, and a sense of destiny that inspired them to shape their landscape in stone. By linking quarries in Wales with plains in Wiltshire, they wove together a symbolic geography that united distant communities. This insight forces us to reconsider the map of prehistoric Britain, not as a patchwork of separate clans, but as a connected web of societies capable of immense collective undertakings. Perhaps the most shocking revelation is the sense of intentionality that now surrounds every aspect of Stonehenge. Nothing about it appears random. The choice of stones, their origins, their arrangement, and their alignment all point to a carefully conceived design. This was not the work of trial and error. It was the execution of a vision, carried out with precision over centuries. It suggests that the builders had a long-term perspective, thinking not only of their own lifetimes, but of generations yet to come. Stonehenge was a message to the future, a monument meant to endure, and in that sense, it has succeeded beyond their wildest imagination. As we look upon the monument today, framed by modern highways and buzzing drones, it is easy to forget the magnitude of what it represents. But the latest scientific breakthroughs bring that magnitude into sharp focus. They tell us that Stonehenge was not a mystery born of ignorance, but a marvel born of knowledge. It was not the work of a people fumbling in the dark, but of a society that understood the land, the sky, and the power of community. The shock lies in realizing that the story we tell of ourselves as modern, rational, and advanced must now make room for the brilliance of our ancestors. The monument has endured for millennia, battered by weather and time, yet it still stands as a testament to human ingenuity. The new discoveries remind us that the stones are not relics of a forgotten past, but witnesses to a vision that transcended the moment of their creation. Stonehenge was, and remains, a place where the human spirit reached beyond the ordinary to touch the eternal. The revelations surrounding Stonehenge continue to unfold in ways that captivate the imagination, pulling us deeper into the minds of the people who first laid those immense stones into the chalky soil of the Salisbury Plain. With the mystery of the stone's origins and transport now solved, scientists are pressing further into the hidden dimensions of the site, examining not only how it was built, but what it truly represented in the fabric of Neolithic society. Each new detail uncovered adds another layer to the story, shifting Stonehenge from a monument of obscurity into one of remarkable clarity and significance. The findings are not only shocking because of their technical implications, but because they reveal a worldview that is as intricate and ambitious as anything conceived in later civilizations. One of the most striking insights emerging from the latest research is the recognition that Stonehenge was likely part of a grander architectural tradition that spread across prehistoric Europe. Before, scholars considered Stonehenge an anomaly, a unique masterpiece of megalithic construction. But patterns discovered in Brittany, Ireland, and Scotland suggest that Stonehenge was part of a shared cultural horizon that extended across the seas. This realization shifts our understanding of prehistoric communities from isolated builders of local monuments to participants in a vast cultural dialogue. The shocking element here is how deeply interconnected these early societies were, communicating and exchanging ideas across hundreds of miles with no written language or advanced navigation tools. The sophistication required for such cultural unity challenges every previous assumption about the intellectual reach of Neolithic peoples. What makes this even more astounding is the evidence pointing towards Stonehenge being a ceremonial hub within this broader network. Archaeologists examining isotopic signatures in human remains buried around the site discovered that many of the individuals came from regions far beyond southern England. Some were from Wales, others from the Scottish Highlands, and still others from areas across the English Channel. These findings suggest that Stonehenge was not simply a local gathering spot, but a destination of pilgrimage. People traveled vast distances to participate in rituals, feasts, and ceremonies held there. To the ancient world, Stonehenge was not just a cluster of stones in Wiltshire, it was the beating heart of a pan-European spiritual network. That such a magnet for human gathering existed 5 millennia ago is one of the most shocking revelations in the entire narrative because it reframes prehistoric society as both cosmopolitan and spiritually interconnected. The rituals themselves are now better understood thanks to advances in residue analysis and excavation of surrounding sites. Near Stonehenge lies Durrington Walls, a vast settlement where thousands once gathered. Excavations have revealed massive quantities of animal bones, many from pigs and cattle slaughtered in midwinter. This discovery aligns with the monument's alignment to the solstices, suggesting great seasonal festivals. The shocking part is not only the sheer scale of these gatherings, but the deliberate timing. Livestock were driven long distances to be feasted upon in rituals aligned with celestial events. This demonstrates a society capable of both logistical coordination and symbolic thinking, treating food, season, and stone as interconnected elements of a grand ritual calendar. Adding to the sense of shock is the discovery of how Stonehenge may have resonated in ways beyond the visual. Recent studies in archaeoacoustics reveal that the arrangement of stones created unique sound qualities within the circle. The blue stones, when struck, emit resonant tones, almost bell-like in character. This suggests that sound may have been a deliberate part of the experience, with the monument designed to amplify chanting, drumming, or other ritual noises. If true, Stonehenge was not just a solar observatory or architectural marvel, but also a kind of prehistoric concert hall, where sound and stone worked together to create a multi-sensory spiritual environment. This possibility is shocking because it implies a far more nuanced understanding of space and atmosphere than anyone previously suspected, proving that Neolithic builders were not only engineers and astronomers, but also acousticians of remarkable intuition. The sense of surprise deepens when we consider the biological evidence now linked to the monument. Isotopic analysis of teeth from human burials near Stonehenge reveals not only geographical diversity, but also dietary insights. These people consumed foods rich in dairy, indicating that dairying was an important part of their lives. More importantly, some evidence suggests feasts were carefully organized around shared meals, where everyone ate similar dishes from communal pots. This communal approach to food reveals an egalitarian undertone to the gatherings. While leaders likely orchestrated the construction of Stonehenge, the rituals themselves appear to have reinforced unity rather than hierarchy. The shock here is that such a massive monument, requiring coordination on a scale comparable to the pyramids of Egypt, might not have been the expression of a ruling elite, but of collective identity and shared purpose. Even more surprising is what cutting-edge technology has revealed beneath the surface. Remote sensing has uncovered dozens of previously unknown features in the landscape surrounding Stonehenge, including buried pits, ditches, and alignments that form a vast hidden network. One of the most shocking discoveries was a series of giant pits forming a huge circle around Durrington walls, each measuring over 10 meters across. These pits may have marked boundaries or ritual spaces, suggesting that Stonehenge was only the centerpiece of a much larger ceremonial complex spanning miles. The magnitude of this hidden landscape reveals a scale of planning and design that dwarfs earlier interpretations, shocking scholars with its ambition. What once seemed like a single monument is now understood as part of a sprawling sacred geography. The monument's meaning has also been reinterpreted in light of these discoveries. While once thought to be primarily a burial site, it now seems clear that Stonehenge embodied a cycle of life and death. The River Avon connected Stonehenge to other ceremonial centers, including Woodhenge, a site of timber posts thought to symbolize the realm of the living. In contrast, Stonehenge's enduring stone circle may have represented the world of the ancestors and the eternal. The shocking realization is that the entire landscape operated as a symbolic journey, from wooden structures tied to life's transience to stone monuments tied to immortality. People may have processed along avenues, carrying the dead toward the stones, merging ritual, cosmology, and landscape into a coherent vision of existence. Another dimension of shock comes from considering the sheer longevity of Stonehenge's construction. The monument was not built in a single burst of activity, but over centuries. Generations of people added, rearranged, and repurposed stones. This prolonged process reveals a continuity of vision across hundreds of years. For a society without writing to maintain such a project through so many generations is nothing short of astonishing. It suggests a deeply ingrained cultural memory, preserved through oral tradition and ritual practice. The fact that successive generations could commit themselves to the same monumental vision shocks us, because it demonstrates a persistence of identity that rivals the most enduring civilizations of recorded history. Beyond the monument itself, scientists have uncovered evidence that the construction of Stonehenge transformed the very environment. Large-scale deforestation occurred to clear paths for moving the stones and to open ceremonial spaces. This manipulation of the landscape on such a vast scale demonstrates an ecological vision as much as a spiritual one. The people who built Stonehenge were not passive inhabitants of their environment, they were active shapers of it. They redirected rivers, cleared forests, and engineered avenues to align with celestial events. The shock comes from realizing that this was not merely architecture, but landscape design on a continental scale, undertaken 5 millennia ago. Perhaps the most unsettling aspect of the discoveries is what they imply about human motivation. Stonehenge was not practical. It offered no defense, no shelter, no immediate survival advantage. Its entire purpose lay in meaning, belief, and identity. That people were willing to devote such immense energy to a monument of pure symbolism is shocking, because it reveals the power of the human mind to imagine and to prioritize the intangible. These people lived without the comforts of later civilizations, yet they devoted themselves to building something eternal. Not for themselves alone, but for generations they would never see. The implications ripple outward. Stonehenge forces us to reconsider the trajectory of human progress. It is tempting to think of history as a steady climb from primitive ignorance to modern sophistication. But Stonehenge upends that narrative, showing that 5,000 years ago, people already possessed an extraordinary capacity for abstract thought, collective action, and cultural expression. The shocking truth is that in some ways, they may have been more attuned to the cosmos, more unified in purpose, and more deeply connected to their environment than we are today. Stonehenge also redefines our understanding of leadership in prehistory. Rather than kings or pharaohs commanding labor through coercion, it appears that Stonehenge was built through communal participation, where belief itself was the driving force. The shock here lies in recognizing that some of humanity's greatest achievements were not imposed from above, but emerged from shared vision and collective effort. This revelation carries profound implications for how we view cooperation and achievement, both in the past and in the present. Equally shocking is the realization that Stonehenge continues to fulfill its purpose. Though its rituals have long faded, the monument still draws people from across the world. Tourists, scholars, and spiritual seekers alike flock to its stones, just as Neolithic pilgrims once did. The alignment with the solstices still works. The sun still rises and sets in perfect harmony with the great stones, as if the monument were a time machine connecting us with the minds of its builders. In this way, the shocking discovery is not only about the past, It is about the enduring continuity of human wonder. As research continues, more secrets are certain to emerge. Each new layer revealed only deepens the sense of awe. What began as a riddle of standing stones has become a revelation about the human spirit itself. Stonehenge shocks us because it shows that long before the pyramids, long before the written word, people were capable of creating something so ambitious, so meaningful, and so enduring that it continues to command attention across 5 millennia. The recent breakthroughs surrounding Stonehenge have brought forth a torrent of new questions, each opening dimensions of inquiry that stretch far beyond the monument itself. With scientists now confident about the origins of the stones, the logistics of their transport, and the sheer cultural scope of the project, attention has turned to the less visible but equally powerful forces that drove its creation. This means shifting the focus to the intellectual, emotional, and spiritual frameworks that gave rise to one of the most ambitious constructions in human prehistory. What is most shocking in this realm is not simply the scale of the achievement, but the sophistication of thought and purpose that it reveals about people who lived over 5 millennia ago. One of the most striking aspects of Stonehenge, illuminated by recent discoveries, is how it embodies the convergence of multiple realms of knowledge. The builders were not only skilled in quarrying and transport, they were experts in astronomy, engineering, and symbolic expression. The solar alignments, confirmed with such precision, show an understanding of celestial cycles that rivals the later civilizations of Mesopotamia and Egypt. Yet this astronomical mastery did not exist in isolation. It was woven into a symbolic framework that tied the heavens to the earth and human life to cosmic order. The shocking realization here is that Stonehenge was not just a monument, but a synthesis, a place where science, art, and spirituality merged into one enduring vision. At the same time, Stonehenge invites us to reconsider the intellectual capabilities of societies that left no written records. Without writing, without books, without even a simple alphabet, the builders of Stonehenge created a monument that encoded astronomical cycles, social memory, and religious symbolism. This suggests that oral traditions and visual markers carried knowledge across generations with remarkable accuracy. The shock lies in realizing that writing is not the sole vehicle for preserving complex knowledge. Embodied practices, rituals, and monumental architecture can serve as equally powerful forms of cultural transmission. In this way, Stonehenge was not only a sacred site, but a library of stone, preserving the wisdom of its creators long after their voices fell silent. Equally astonishing are the personal dimensions that emerge when one considers the human experiences bound up in the monument. Each stone was touched by countless hands, pulled across landscapes, raised with immense struggle. Behind the grandeur lie stories of individuals, craftsmen shaping timber sledges, children watching processions, elders invoking ancestral spirits. For them, Stonehenge was not a static structure but a living project, a site of shared labor and shared meaning. The shocking implication is that the monument's true power lay not only in its stones, but in the process of bringing it into being. It was the act of building, of gathering, feasting, chanting, hauling, that forged community as much as the finished circle did. This view is reinforced by new evidence of seasonal gatherings. Archaeologists have uncovered animal bones showing signs of deliberate selection, pigs and cattle slaughtered at very specific ages, timed to coincide with midwinter and midsummer festivals. Such evidence points towards Stonehenge being less a silent monument and more a vibrant stage for recurring communal events. These were moments when people reaffirmed bonds, renewed traditions, and connected themselves to cosmic rhythms. The shock here is that Stonehenge was not a static relic in its own time. It was a dynamic center of social life, a place that pulsed with music, ritual, and human presence. Adding another dimension of surprise is the recent discovery of how Stonehenge was integrated into its natural surroundings. The site is located on a chalk plain where the ground produces unusual visual effects at certain times of year. The white chalk paths, when illuminated by the rising or setting sun, would have glowed against the landscape, creating a dramatic contrast with the gray stones. Combined with the alignment of the solstices, this setting would have made the ceremonies visually overwhelming, with the landscape itself becoming part of the ritual performance. The shock here lies in the intentional use of nature's features to amplify the spiritual experience. demonstrating a sophisticated interplay between architecture and environment that modern architects still strive to achieve. The revelation that Stonehenge was part of a larger ceremonial landscape adds yet another layer of astonishment. Buried features such as pits, ditches, and avenues reveal a deliberate structuring of space that extended far beyond the stone circle. These features were not practical in a defensive or economic sense. They were symbolic, marking pathways of movement and boundaries of sacred space. The shock lies in the recognition that Stonehenge was less an isolated temple and more the center of a symbolic universe, with the surrounding landscape inscribed like a vast ritual map. This suggests a worldview in which land itself was sacred, each path and feature carrying meaning that tied human life to cosmic order. One of the most unexpected discoveries comes from the acoustic properties of the stones. The blue stones, when struck, resonate with musical tones, leading some researchers to suggest they were chosen not only for their origin, but for their sound. If so, rituals at Stonehenge may have involved striking stones or chanting within the circle to produce resonant effects. This interpretation transforms the monument into something more dynamic than ever imagined, a stage for sound as well as sight. The shock lies in imagining Stonehenge as a place not of silence, but of vibrant soundscapes, where the stones themselves sang in resonance with human voices and drums, creating a multisensory ritual environment. The symbolic interplay of materials further deepens the astonishment. The sarsens, uniform and massive, symbolize permanence and stability, while the smaller bluestones, transported from distant Wales, embody connection and mobility. Together, they create a dialogue between the local and the distant, the eternal and the transient. This deliberate material symbolism suggests that the builders were philosophers as well as engineers, weaving ideas of permanence and connection into the very fabric of their construction. It is shocking to recognize such depth of abstract thought in a culture we once considered primitive. Another shocking dimension arises when considering Stonehenge's role in death and memory. Human remains discovered in the area suggest the site was used for burial as well as ritual, but these were not ordinary burials. The remains often show signs of cremation, with ashes carefully placed within the site. This practice suggests that Stonehenge served as a gateway between worlds, a place where the living communed with the dead, and where ancestors were enshrined in stone. The shock lies in recognizing that the monument was both a temple to the cosmos and a cemetery of memory, binding together cycles of life, death, and eternity in one unified vision. Equally surprising is the realization that Stonehenge was never static, but underwent transformations over centuries. Stones were moved, rearranged, and repurposed. What we see today is the final stage of a dynamic process that spanned generations. Each modification reflects new layers of meaning and purpose, suggesting that Stonehenge was alive in the cultural imagination, constantly renewed by those who came after. The shocking implication is that the monument was not a frozen achievement, but a living tradition, embodying change as much as permanence. Perhaps the most profound shock comes from considering the sheer willpower behind Stonehenge. The people who built it had no iron tools, no wheels, no beasts of burden. Their technology was simple, yet they achieved what many thought impossible. They dragged stones weighing tons across miles of rugged terrain, erected them with ingenious techniques, and aligned them with celestial precision. The fact that this was done not under compulsion, but seemingly out of devotion and belief is staggering. It reminds us of the extraordinary capacities of human determination when bound by shared vision. In many ways, the discoveries about Stonehenge are shocking because they reflect back on us. They force us to reconsider what it means to be human, what drives us to create, and what we choose to leave behind. In a world where technology has reached dizzying heights, Stonehenge stands as a reminder that long before modern tools, human beings reached for the eternal, carving meaning into the land itself. The monument shocks us not only with what it reveals about the past, but with what it suggests about the timeless nature of human aspiration. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on Stonehenge's mystery finally being solved? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.